Well, thanks very much for having me. It's an
Okay.
honor.
Yes, thank you. Okay, let's get started with some part of your collections. Okay. The first question is, how long have you been in watch collecting and why?
So I think I've been collecting watches as a whole for about 10 years now.
Okay.
I've always been a fan of finer things in life, and watches just naturally drew me. But in terms of getting into vintage watches,
Okay.
I would say that's about 6 years ago.
6 years
When
ago.
I started my PhD in the UK,
Okay.
and I met a very dear friend who was introduced to me by Rob from A Collected Man.
Okay.
So we're both studying in the same school, and so we decided to have a coffee.
Okay.
We met in an Indian restaurant in Oxford,
Okay.
and he showed me some of his really nice watches. At the time, I was in watches,
Okay.
but I was collecting a lot of high-end modern neo
Okay,
vintage.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I had a couple of Longines.
Okay.
I had a couple of APs, Breguet, this
Yes.
kind of stuff. The pieces from the 90s to the early 2000s,
Yes.
mid 2000s.
So we call neo vintage.
So
or
yeah,
something,
neo vintage, kind of modern. So somewhere in that spectrum.
Okay.
But I met this guy, and he showed me a small part of his collection. He
It's
brought
stunning, right?
he brought a mint condition 1463. Back then I had already
Okay.
been aware of the
okay.
vintage world, but I hadn't quite handled such high-end pieces in
Yes,
hand
yes.
to really appreciate that subtle beauty that you can only really see when you handle the watches in person.
Yes.
So that was like kind of my first experience handling high-end vintage.
Yes.
And
I am
that's
vintage.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's when it really started for me. So I think shortly after that, when I went to Japan,
Yes.
I picked up my first high-end, quote unquote, vintage watch from a dealer in Osaka.
In Osaka. Okay.
Yeah, and it's just slippery slope from there, buying and selling and buying and selling, and just now my collection is somewhere around 200 to 250 pieces. I
Okay.
don't even have a count.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. I saw many good timepieces in your Instagram.
Yeah, it's growing still. So
So you can start right now.
no.
Okay. Could you tell us more about your collections? Right in front of me, I saw this is the Patek.
Yep.
And Patek, I got, oh my God, the Longines.
Yes.
Yeah, and the AP. Which
Yeah.
one do you want to go first?
We can just start with however you described it. So
Okay, maybe the
the
Patek
Patek.
first.
So
yeah.
so this is kind of, I guess, the travel essential kit.
Yeah.
I don't bring a lot of watches around with me when I travel. I'm in
Okay.
Hong Kong for a few weeks.
Yes.
So I decided, I can't just have one watch.
Okay.
I need to have something dressy,
Yes.
something with that kind of represents who I am and my taste as a collector.
Yes.
And then something that can handle the humidity in Hong Kong.
Oh yes, that's very important.
Exactly. So the first one is a Patek. I think the reference is 2513.
2550. Okay.
It's from I forgot the exact year, but I think it's from 1953.
1953. Okay.
It's a tank, but it has the subtle, but look closer still kind of details, which I'm a big fan of.
Yes.
It's got these pizza-shaped indices. It has these teardrop-shaped lugs.
Oh my God, the raised
It's
enamel.
it's raised enamel, of course.
Yes, double logo.
And it's Gubelin retailed as well.
Yes.
And Gubelin also is a brand that's dear to my heart. So this one I picked it up from a dealer / collector friend in California.
Okay.
And it serves the. I like the fact that it's in gold. It's also like a tank shaped, not a
Yes.
round watch. So if
This
you want
is not
something,
a simple watch.
No.
If you have a look in hands or something, you can see this is not a square.
Yeah.
And you can see the
Exactly.
curve.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the case. They do many stuff on the cases.
So-
many craftsmanship. or
precisely.
something, Yes.
Yeah, I'm a
Oh
big
my
fan
God.
of watches that make you look closer.
Yes.
And the dial condition is not perfect, but
For me, it's perfect if you tell me the.
I've seen a lot of these 2513s, and the ones that have sold in auction, they all have very spotty dials.
Oh,
So
yeah,
actually,
okay.
even though this one also has a few patina spots around the
yes.
periphery of the dial, it's one of the better examples I've found.
Actually, this is very hard if you know the watch
Yeah.
industry
Yeah.
about the applied hour markers because there is no any scale and they have to make it very, the distribution is good and
Yeah.
perfectly. It's very difficult.
Precisely, yes.
It's very difficult. That's really good watches. But have you opened the case back and see the movement before?
Yeah, of course.
Is this a circle one or
It's a circular
is it
movement,
circle?
I
Okay,
think, yeah.
thank you. And the lock is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, the logs.
Oh my God.
The case is in really good shape. You can tell from kind of the aging on the gold. There's some
Yeah.
spotty, probably
Yes,
from
actually,
the
some
sweat.
watch collector want to remove it, but for me, it's very beautiful one, and I will keep it.
Yeah,
I will keep it. So it's very rare even in Hong Kong. I haven't seen it before.
yeah, it's a rare reference. I mean, the thing with a lot of these 50s, 60s Pateks are they made these references in such low quantities.
Yes, agree.
So it's really hard to find another one.
Yes, very subtle, I have to say.
Yeah.
Every time we saw many grand communication or something, the other brand, they make some, the modern watch will be so bling bling and so complicated and many
Precisely.
layers. Yes.
Yeah.
But when we go back to the Patek give you some vibe that the other brand can't give you. For example, you put it on your wrist,
Yeah.
very subtle. I don't know how to say it. It's different, man.
Especially when you have it in person, because I think
Yes.
the enamel on the dial, when the logo, the indices or the track, if you have a tracked dial,
That's
it's the way that
perfect.
plays with the light is very different from a
Yes.
normal dial. So,
Yes.
so that's the beauty in Patek. And then another watch that I'm carrying
yeah.
with me is the Longines
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Patek,
Yes, that's crazy.
the oversized 35 millimeter
Oh
time
my
only
goodness.
with a black sector gilt dial. It's
That's
probably
crazy,
the
man.
most worn vintage watch in my collection. I have a lot of watches. I don't wear all of them, but this one I've worn many, many, many times because it's very easy to wear. It's a good size. And
Crazy. Because I'm a Longines collector,
yeah,
actually.
I know
but
you have a lot of 13 ZNs. I saw.
Yes,
Yeah.
but this one is absolutely gorgeous, man.
I can't afford a 13
my-
ZN, so I collect this.
Oh no! Believe in me, with this condition, you can get a beautiful 37. I know
Yeah.
that, but this is really stunning because you can, as you say, can be your guild or daily watch.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me more about this watch story and where did you find it? And
So I got it from a dealer in New York.
New York?
I paid a hefty sum,
okay,
but as before
have
we
to.
just talked about briefly,
okay.
it's a 35 Tritake, which nowadays
Yes,
you can find them a little bit cheaper, but back when I bought it, they were very, very desirable.
Yeah.
They still are.
Yeah.
You rarely find them with you find them often with sector dials, but they would generally be on silver dials.
Yeah, true.
And then you find some black sector dials on Longines, but generally they're printed dials.
Printed
rather
dial,
than, but
yes.
this one is a galvanic gilt dial,
Oh, galvanic
which
gilt,
makes
okay.
it really, really rare.
Yes.
And
So nice. The size
yeah, the size, the condition is it's very
and
nice.
the case so sharp.
Yeah.
Okay, stepped
And-
bezel.
Yeah,
Oh my
and the
God.
movement, the 1268Z, it's
It's one of the best.
one of the best
One
and
of
also
the
very
best.
easy to service because you find
Yes.
parts everywhere. I think
Yes.
that for me is one of the major selling points of Longines because you find all these vintage brands and sometimes they're difficult to service because you can't find the right parts, especially if you're not in the right parts of the
True.
world. Like in Korea, it's very difficult because we don't have a lot of vintage watches in
Yes.
general, so it's difficult for the watchmakers to find parts. And sometimes you have to pay high premium on eBay.
Yes.
But
What we-
1268Z, you don't have any of this worry.
But what we love Longines because in-house movement
Yeah,
before and it's very beautiful and you can see the polish. the
Very well
finishes.
finished
Yeah,
as well.
Very well
Yeah,
finished.
yeah.
Yes, I love that. Breathtaking, man. This one is breathtaking. Okay. Okay. Let's move on to the other one.
yeah, and of course the one that fights the humidity in Hong Kong. This
Yes.
is the
The best choice.
yeah. So, I mean, I'm not really a big fan of sports watches. In fact, this is the only one that I own in my whole collection.
Okay.
It's the AP 14790 ST,
Yes.
the 36 millimeter automatic version. I like the watch because it has a slimmer case profile compared to the newer generation of APs.
Yes.
Because they have a closed case back in these days. This one has the second series style, with
Yes.
the longer baton indices,
Oh, true.
which also makes them a little bit rarer. I picked this up from a really good friend of mine in New York, he specializes in Journe tourbillons and stuff. So
Okay.
and he was letting go at a good price, so I picked it up for kind of
That's
like
perfect.
a daily beater watch, especially when I'm
That's
traveling. In Hong Kong, this is probably the perfect watch too.
Yes, I agree.
It's raining, it's humid in general, so you need something that's waterproof, has a screw-down crown, and of course, it's an iconic design. The proportions are perfect.
Yes. Okay. But for me, and we have Longines here, AP and Patek. But for me, I love Longines, you know that, of course. But about Patek, no word to describe, you know what I mean.
So, yeah.
And maybe we go through the next questions.
Sure,
okay.
sure.
Okay. And what is your favorite watch that you have added to your collection right now?
Oh, it's really difficult to pick one favorite watch.
Yeah,
and
okay.
this is because I collect perhaps a little bit different from how some collectors who are more focused might collect. I collect from a really wide spectrum. I buy watches that are 200 pounds, and then I have a 3970 in my collection. So I have a really wide spectrum of watches. In terms of my favorite watch, among my vintage watches, I would pick probably a Ulysse Nardin chronograph.
Okay.
So Ulysse Nardin is a brand that is really dear to my heart because it's the brand that I started vintage collecting with. It's also the brand that is really kind of like embodies the friendship between me and my friend that got me into vintage watches. So I have a really nice step case, 35 millimeter tropical dial chronograph from Ulysse Nardin. So that one is probably my favorite vintage watch in my collection. And then I have the 3970 second series in pink gold with an open case back. So it kind of ticks all the rare marks. So that one came from that friend. Actually, we can tag his Instagram as well. But so that one is probably my favorite, non-vintage watch in my collection. So I would have to pick one from each.
Yeah, it's really hard actually
Yeah.
sometimes because especially when you have a lot of watches in your collections.
I do, yeah.
Okay. But what do you think is the best vintage watches for a beginning collector to start with?
For a beginning collector.
Yeah, because you love vintage watches just like me, and give us some advice.
I get this question a lot actually, and
Cool.
the natural answer would be Longines, but then
Okay,
actually
give me five, man.
Yeah, but
Okay.
but I shy away from recommending that to people.
Yeah.
Because you find a lot of Longines, but it's not easy to find
yeah.
a Longines that is truly high quality.
Yes,
And
you're right.
when you do find it, they are very expensive.
Yes, you're right.
So when
We experienced that before. Yeah.
So actually, the kind of the brands that I recommend to people are, the likes of Zenith, because
Zenith?
those
Okay.
are actually very affordable still
Oh, true.
compared to their quality.
Even their vintage chronograph.
Yeah.
Yes, it's still.
Yeah, exactly. So Zenith is one of them. I mean, Longines, of course. If you have the budget,
Yes.
if you're beginning, you want to find something under $1,000, pounds, whatever, then I generally would shy away from Longines. Actually,
But really hard to find the good quality Longines.
Exactly.
As I know, I met and I know many Longines collectors. Actually, we keep all the good stuff. You know that.
Yeah,
You won't
yeah.
find the good stuff in the market. If you find it, the price will be very,
Very
premium.
high, yes.
Yes, it's very premium.
Yes.
Okay.
And then so Zenith, Sima is another one.
Okay, Sima, yeah.
Tavan, which is also
Yes.
the same as Sima, basically. So those brands, they offer a lot of value because you get all those vintage 30s, 40s aesthetics, but without that hefty, Ulysse Nardin, Longines kind of price tag. So you can find a lot of nice things under 1,000. A lot of nice things.
Okay. Okay, but do you think that as a beginner, beginning to collect some vintage watches, should we focus about the setter dial or something? What type of vintage watch you recommend?
Whatever draws you, right?
Okay, whatever draw you.
Whatever draws you. I mean, I personally love sector dials. I probably have
Same here.
100 sector dials in my collection.
Oh my god.
But but generally they're expensive. Even the ones from Sima, Tavan, if you find a nice sector dial from those brands, they can actually still be expensive.
But something expensive, there are reasons behind because
of course,
yes, because as a collector, just like you and me, we love the setter.
Yeah.
Just like the other collectors, my friend, we love the aesthetic. We don't know why, because you can't find the texture in the modern watches.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You can't find the texture. Okay. Okay, this is my last questions. Okay, what is a watch that you are currently searching for, and
Currently
why?
searching
Yes.
for.
And why does it interest you?
You know, actually, it's not a particularly special watch.
Okay.
I kind of want to buy a Patek 5059/5159. I think these are the retrograde perpetual calendars from the
Okay.
early 2000s to late 2000s. I think. I'm not very well versed in modern Patek.
Okay.
I think it's interesting because Patek rarely makes retrograde perpetual
Yes,
calendars,
that's good.
and you know those virtually don't exist in the vintage era. Right? You find these extremely rare, unique pieces with a handful of these, but you know they're not standard production for sure. So I think that one, you don't have a vintage alternative, so that's why it draws me. So that's probably some, and I think they're still really undervalued. You can find them under 40,000 USD
Yes.
every day.
Agree.
So you know, compared to 3940, which has, you know, I don't know if that's an answer that's satisfactory, because you probably wanted to hear some nice
Okay.
vintage watch that I'm
Yes.
chasing. You know, but yeah, if there is a really, really nice vintage watch, I probably won't say it, because I like
Agree.
to keep some things hidden.
Yes.
You know,
You are not going to sell anything, right? If you really love.
no, I have, you know, these, especially the Longines here. I probably have a wait list of like, as in wish list.
Yes, that's crazy. Do you know that when you sit down and I saw this,
Yeah.
and I saw this in person, and oh my god, I have to take it go back to I'm just kidding. But this is really nice. I saw many Longines, but
Yeah.
this one is crazy. The dial is absolutely beautiful.
So I have another one with the same dial.
Really?
Yeah, but
You
I
have to-
don't post it on Instagram. because,
Okay, okay. That's what we have talked. We have
Exactly.
thought that all the collectors keep the best.
Yeah.
Keep the best
Yeah.
style. And expect only the 37 is really hard to find. You can
37,
find many
yeah.
in the Chrono 24, but believe in me, that's not the best.
No.
That's not the best. You know that.
All
yeah.
the best ones are already in Japan and Italy.
Yeah,
and
you know
the
that
US.
Japan,
Yeah.
yes, Japan and US and Italy.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for your time.
of
and,
course.
Okay, see you next time. Okay.
Yeah.